Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the St. Louis podcast for July 14th, 2023. I am your glorious host today, again by myself without Garrett Atkins. My name is Eric Brown, partner and chief sales officer at Vi Media, as well as a partner in a holding company that owns multiple home service businesses. Today, we have Eric. Pronounce your last name for us, if you would, sir.
Oberembt.
Eric Oberembt, podcast host of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out on the St. Louis podcast today, and we're going to get in the weeds with him and his business. But before we do, this is the St. Louis podcast, where each and every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, we drop an episode on all major podcasting, audio, and video platforms, where we meet with the most badass people and content creators to talk about business, entrepreneurships, and, of course, current events. You can watch the show live or later on youtube.com/the St. Louis podcast, just like Katie Baker and Matt Parker are right now. Sadly, they're off camera today. And now let's jump into it. Eric, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to have you on. So we got Garrett and we got Eric Oberembt on the podcast today. Podcast host of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out, author, business owner, and public speaker. Owner and CEO, of D&M Roofing and Siding in Omaha, Nebraska, co-founder of Roofers in Recovery. You're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. So with that said, give us a little bit of information about yourself. Obviously, you got the podcast, you got the roofing and siding business, Roofers in Recovery. How do all those things kind of work together?
That's a hell of a question. So I started in roofing actually as a kid. My grandfather started our roofing company back in the 60s. Obviously, I was not alive. I'm not that old.
Sure.
But he started the company way back in the day as a one-man operation, two, I guess, technically, because my grandma answered the phones and did the books.
Sure.
Right. I mean, it was a true mom and pop, operation. Right. My parents got divorced when I was 7 years old. And my sister, my mom, and I actually moved in with my grandparents. And so for all intents and purposes, my grandfather became my dad,
Gotcha.
right, at that time. And so at a very young age, like literally 10 years old, I started going on job sites. I started putting plastic around soil pipes on commercial tar and gravel roofs, right? I started watching him and how he interacted with homeowners and business owners and how he was selling to them as well, right? I was literally just absorbing all the time. So every summer when I was out of school, I was on job sites working, getting up at 5 a.m. and going out with the guys and on the crews and everything and learning how to install and then following him and learning how to sell, right? As soon as I turned 16, got driver's license, I started selling. He gave me a yellow notepad. I'll never forget it. He gave me a yellow notepad with some names on it. And he was like, go sell this. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, go sell it. He's like, you've been watching me long enough.
Yep.
And so I did. I literally threw a ladder in the back of my truck and I started selling roofs. I'll never forget my first sale was a $500 remop. So we did a lot of hot tar roofs back in the day.
Okay.
And we would sell these little garages. There's a part of Omaha that has a bunch of houses, like smaller houses that have a flat roof on the garage. And we'd sell these little remops for $500 and we call that track money. And so we'd get $500 cash to do them. And we take that money and go to the horse track and gamble it away on the weekend. So that was how I grew up. Right. I went to college. After I graduated high school, I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Okay.
And I was going to school down there with no purpose other than drinking, right? I was just causing problems. I was barely going to class. I was the guy that would get this is no joke. It was every other semester, I got a .089 GPA.
Yep.
And then they put me on academic probation. So I was like, all right, I'll go to class. So I go to class and get a 3.5 just so I wouldn't get kicked out of school. And then the next semester I get a .089. And I kept doing that like cyclically every semester. And I went back to Omaha because I was still working, right? So I was still driving back and forth from Lincoln to Omaha and working for my grandpa. And I was taking some classes in Omaha at the university there. And I literally drove around campus for an hour trying to find a parking spot and I couldn't find one. So I quit school.
That was the last straw. You're just like, screw it, I'm out.
That was fucking it. I couldn't handle it anymore. I hated school. I hated professors. I hated what they were trying to teach me because none of it was real world shit that I was living in the moment. And so I literally called my grandpa up. I was probably 2 at the time. And I said, hey, I'm done. Get me more appointments. He was like, done with what? And I'm like, this school shit. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yep, I'm sure. He's like, okay. And that was where I kind of took off and decided to go all in with the roofing company. And so I graduated to, running a lot of the day-to-day operations. And then when he passed away, I just took over the entire company, and that's when we started scaling.
Gotcha. So going back to as a child, you said pretty much from 10 to 16, I mean, you were in the field learning actually how to do it. Because I think, one of the big issues, really in roofing and, a lot of home service type businesses as well, is you have a lot of these guys that don't know anything really about the roof. And their whole goal is to, hey, we'll get it covered by insurance and move on to the next person, really not giving a shit if they can do a repair on it. There's a couple shingles, whatever have you. It's just, hey, let's get this full replacement and move on to the next person. Because a lot of the, like I was saying, a lot of those, we work with a ton of roofers. So we're well versed in the space, and it's like, it's really tough to find those partners that, number one, that care in the roofing, and number two, actually know what the hell they're doing. Because you're well aware, the fly-by-night guys, they start a business name, they screw over people for a couple of years, they change the business name, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously you being in that field for so long gave you, a massive advantage. And with that said, do you think that, that's something that was instrumental in you being successful in business and why people nowadays aren't as successful? Because essentially a lot of people are graduating college without any real world experience in jobs, in working and dealing with customers and dealing with business. They come out of college and they're like, where's my $75,000, a year job? Whereas they have no experience.
Yeah, it 100% adds to my credibility, right? Because I didn't stop working on roofs at 16, right? I just added another skill set in being able to sell, right? I was still on roofs into my mid-20s, like mid to late 20s. I was still up on roofs doing stuff. Now, I wasn't every day from 6 to 6 up on the roof, but I was still up there with the guys doing stuff, and then I'd take off early and try and go sell some more roofs, right?
Sure,
because again, we were still a mom and pop shop, right? My grandpa did not believe in bringing in outside people to work inside of his company. He didn't trust anybody. He did not want to have anybody that wasn't family part of our entity, right? And that obviously made it difficult, right? Because you really had a job, you didn't have a business. And that was the thing that I learned watching him. Was some of the biggest things that I learned from my grandpa wasn't things that he taught me how to do. It was the things that I experienced and I watched to say, I'm not going to do that.
Yep. And that's invaluable.
If that makes sense.
It is. It's invaluable because with a lot of that stuff, you have to see there, you have to be there, and you have to experience it. It's not, a lot of this stuff in business, isn't taught. It's something that you literally just have to pick up and see and be like, okay, learn from this. Either this is the way to do it or there's a better way to do this moving forward. So you said he didn't bring in a lot of, outside people to help run the business or to, salespeople, installers, et cetera. So when officially did you kind of take it over?
Well, so it probably in my mid to late 20s, I started kind of running some day-to-day stuff. So it gave us the opportunity where we're one of the weird stories, my company is, because we started off as 100% commercial roofing company, right? Okay. All we did was flat tar, gravel, mod bit, stuff like that.
Sure. And
then in the early 2000s, late 90s, we started getting hailstorms in the Midwest a little bit more. And I went and sold a few houses and brought in a crew, put the roof on, went and sold another one, brought in a crew, put the roof on. And I was like, hey, this is a lot easier. Yeah. I was like, I don't have to work so hard and we can still make money. And he was like, well, I don't really give a shit how you make the money, just make the money. I was like, great, let me do this then. So I actually transformed us then into kind of a residential storm restoration contractor in that moment. And we did that really hard for 6, 8, 9 years, something like that. And then I had a kind of epiphany as I got a little bit older, and I realized that I hate dealing with homeowners. So I said, I want to bring back my commercial expertise and rebuild our business to have two separate divisions where I can focus on commercial and I can have a team that focuses on residential, because residential still keeps the lights on. Commercial takes longer, but I love it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Right. Yep.
And so I did that. And so I was able to grow the business as far as like revenue goes, but I wasn't able to bring people in yet. And so Grandpa passed away about 9 or 10 years ago. And when Grandpa passed away, I took over the other half of the company. So then it was all mine. And I had literally only saved up maybe 50 grand, right? I had 50 grand squirreled away, like hidden in a box in the backyard somewhere. And I took that 50 grand and I used it as a down payment to buy my first property. And I used that property. I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do with that property. I just knew that I needed to buy the property. And it was like 4 buildings in the middle of town, sitting on 2 acres, had warehouse space. Like I got a smoking deal on it. And I bought this building and I was like, what am I going to put in these buildings? And I had this like kind of ding go off and I was like, people. And I started hiring people slowly because I didn't have any money. Right. So like, I had to hire them slowly of like, okay, what do I not want to do? That I can hire one person to do that. So I can focus on this. Then I made a little bit more money so I could hire that person. And then I actually found some tenants, right? And I started leasing out some of the space. And then that allowed me to leverage that building into buying another building so that I could do real estate. You know how the story goes, right? And so once I did that, I was like, oh, now I need to learn how to actually run a business, right? And that was when I started taking the time to say, okay, I need coaching because there's no fucking school for this. I need coaching. I need to go to conferences. I need to learn all the softwares. I need to do all this stuff that nobody ever taught me. And I spent the next 2 years just diving into that world of learning those things so that I could learn how to actually grow a business to where today I've got a 10,000 square foot, actually 13,000 square foot building that we operate out of in Nebraska. I moved to Texas last year. So we opened up a location down in Houston. So we've got staff and people down in Houston. So like, I understand how to open up locations and how to do all these different things now that I had no idea how to do 10, 12 years ago. Right. And it was all self-educating, like had to figure it out myself. Right. Because that was the biggest thing that I learned from my grandpa was that if I didn't know how to do something and I asked him how to do it, his answer was figure it out. And nobody today tells people to figure it out. They all want the easy button. And they're like, Eric, how do I do that? I'm like, well, I know, but if you don't fucking know, like, go figure it out. I didn't have YouTube or Google or any of this bullshit that we all have today. Like, literally the answers are at their fingertips right now. I had none of that. I had fucking Yellow Book and encyclopedias, right? Like none of that gave me the answers either.
There was no classes on how to run a roofing company.
No, you had to call people and be like, hey, how do I do this? Like, I didn't know what was going to happen the first time I had a work comp on it. Right? Like, because we never had work comp, 30 years ago, right? And so I had to literally call another roofer that was a friend of mine going, what do I do? I'm freaking out over here. And, like you have to have those conversations. And so that's what we try to instill in our people now is how do you figure it out? Like, let's figure problems out together and by yourself.
Well, how large is your team now?
We've got in-house employees. We're a little over 25 employees.
Awesome. So obviously you got the roofing side. One question I do always like to ask is there, from a standpoint of something actionable, a homeowner, or excuse me, a business owner can take specifically, let's just say for a home service company, what action could they implement and take today to make a big difference in their company, tomorrow?
As an owner, I think that the biggest thing that I always talk about if I'm consulting or coaching or helping anybody is kind of what I alluded to in the beginning was figuring out what your time's worth and then figuring out how to hire for those things so that you can focus on the things that fill your bucket instead of you focusing on a bunch of shit that's a $12 an hour task to do. Because I think that as owners, especially in the early stages of business, we spend so much time getting bogged down in $12, $15 an hour tasks that we have to do daily. And if you actually sit down and figure out your time, like I figured out I'm worth like $350 or $400 an hour, right? So it does not behoove me to go do admin tasks, right? But as owners, we are so controlling and we want to oversee everything because we know we think in our heads that we can do it better than everybody else, that nothing else gets done and you have no opportunity to scale, right?
Yep.
So figure out exactly how much you have, figure out what you don't like to do and what you can start delegating, and hire for those positions so that you can get out of those positions to allow yourself to make more money so that you can actually grow the business. I think that's the biggest thing I ever learned, read, implemented, whatever, that has led me to get to the place that I'm at today.
100% agreed. Yeah. I mean, we, as business owners, or even individual salespeople as well, like to do stuff that maybe check something off the list. You know what I mean? And you get the little dopamine rush and you're like, well, good job. I got something accomplished. But at the end of the day, there's something that definitely could have driven bottom line revenue a hell of a lot more than whatever you're focusing on that exact moment. So, okay. Yes, 100% agree. I was just talking to, an IT company owner last weekend. He was on a Friday doing account receivables. And I'm like, why are you doing this? You got, I think he's at a team of almost 15 or 16 people. I'm like, you gotta be trying to hand this off to someone else and take that off your plate. Cause there's no way you're selling big accounts. Like there's different things you can be doing with that time. It's just not.
I've got a buddy down in Houston that owns a $50 million stucco company. And he's got multiple locations all over Texas. And I see him at the gym and I'm like, hey, do you want to go golfing tomorrow? And he's like, tomorrow's Thursday. I got to do payroll. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, do fucking payroll. I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to do payroll. Like, you're out your goddamn mind. You're spending all day doing payroll.
No.
Like, that is not what you should be doing. I literally went and bought him How to Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell and sent it to his house. And I'm like, will you please read this so that you can actually enjoy your goddamn life?
Now, did he take that to heart? Is he going to read the book?
God, I haven't seen him since I sent it to him. So I'm supposed to have dinner with him next week. So I'm going to find out.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's almost like some of those things where, in the past, maybe they've tried to hand it off, didn't hand it off properly. Now they almost have PTSD of like, oh, X, Y, and Z may go wrong if I don't have my hands in it. But the thing is, other stuff is going wrong considering you do have your hands in it. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword.
First person, that doesn't mean the first person that you hire is going to be the right person either, right?
Correct.
So that's what gives you the PTSD is that you go hire the wrong person on accident. And, I how many wrong people I've hired? I mean, a lot. Right. And so but you can't let that discourage you from continuing, down that path, because there's always somebody that's going to fit your mold, fit your core values and all that kind of stuff. And so you have to hire and fire on that.
100%. Yeah. There's a lot of business owners that also don't take the time to, if they do have an issue, fire and, fire quickly if there is a problem. That's another thing business owners usually, especially smaller ones, you got a small team, you got a family. I mean, it's a little bit more personable versus going into an office with 100 people and, you don't know Tom, Dick, and Mary that's, sit literally down a couple desks down from you. So it's tough. It's tough. So I do want to ask about roofers in recovery. How'd you go about starting that? What, let me go ahead and rephrase. So Roofers in Recovery, you co-founded that. So now what I was reading is that you had a past life, I guess, of essentially selling drugs. And then obviously you became a successful entrepreneur. So does that play a part in that Roofers in Recovery? And you kind of, obviously, I'm assuming that, money that you make, revenue or profits, a certain percentage of those goes to Roofers in Recovery. So yeah, kind of explain that to us if you would.
Yeah, I mean, that plays a huge role, right? I was definitely a problem. I always drank. I started drinking in seventh grade, I think it was. I started drinking at a very young age. I have 2 divorces because of my drinking. After my second, I kind of went off a cliff and didn't give a shit anymore about anything. and my drinking escalated even higher than what it was. I was drinking 6 days a week, a lot, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and give a drunkology of how much I drank, but it was more than you.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I found cocaine, and man, did I love cocaine, because I drank so hard and so fast that I would pass out at like 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And I wanted to be the life of the party. And somebody's like, well, you could use this. I'm like, well, hell yeah. And so I started using that to excess. And then as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, I paid retail for Coke once. And I was like, well, that's fucking expensive. Yep. I was like, can I buy a bunch of it and like sell it to people I know? And they're like, sure you can, Eric. And so, so then I started buying larger quantities of it. I started racking up DUIs at a young age of 19 was my first DUI. My last DUI was at 30 years old, and that was my fourth offense felony DUI. And I narrowly dodged drug charges in that because I had 2 8-balls in my pocket that the cop did not find when he searched me.
Wow.
And I was able to flush them at the precinct before they booked me. And I had 10 teeners in my middle console because I was selling all day, but I was so drunk during the day that I didn't realize that I sold all of it. And so the cop found the $1,000 in my console and was like, you want this money? And I'm like, what money? He's like, $1,000. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, I sold all my Coke. And so like, I would have gotten years and years, right, added to my charges. So I was facing 1 to 5 years in prison for this fourth offense felony DUI. And my attorney at the time, who was a friend of mine that I drank with and partied with, was like, you've got 2 choices. You're looking at this 1 to 5, or you can go to treatment and maybe they'll be lenient on you. And maybe you'll get some minimums, but like, he's like, there's no guarantee. And I was like, well, 30 days is less than a year to 5. So like, I'll go give it a shot. Right. So I went to rehab in a place called Valley Hope, out in the middle of nowhere in O'Neill, Nebraska. And I went out there with no intention of getting sober, none. And I was there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I was kind of in a daze, in a fog that first week and a half or so. I don't really remember what went on during that first week and a half, but I do vividly remember sitting in a room while there was a lecture going on in front of me. And I had this moment, and I remember looking out the window, and I looked on the walls, and there was all these like plates and stuff on the walls. Like people get plates and cups and whatever if you did certain things.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember audibly saying out loud, "Holy fuck, I'm in rehab." And like the room stopped, and like people stopped talking and looked at me like, well, he's crazy, right? but I had this moment where I was like, normal people don't have to go to rehab. So maybe you should just shut the fuck up and listen a little bit and open the door and be willing to see if maybe you need to make a change in your life. And so I took the next 2 weeks and I was willing to listen. And I decided that was the life that I wanted to have. So fast forward a handful of years later, about 10 years. I think I was like 8, 9, 10 years sober. And a friend of mine, Paul Reed, who owns Northwest Roofing out in Colorado, calls me, and we're both sober. We both went to rehab, and we both 100% believe that going to rehab saved our life, changed our life, got us into the AA community, like all those things. And we're like, how cool would it be if we could give back and like we could send one person a year to treatment and like save that person's life? And I was like, that sounds great. I'm like, how do we do that? And he's like, I don't know. Maybe we both throw 10 grand into a pot and we send somebody. I'm like, great deal. I'll do it. I'm in. So I threw 10 grand into a pot. We got a phone call. We sent the guy to rehab. Well, all of a sudden, phone started ringing a lot. And we're like, well, we can't afford to do this. Like, this is going to get expensive really fast because it costs about 20 grand every time we send somebody to treatment.
Is that for a month?
So
is it 20,000 for that month? Is that usually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. That's pretty. I wouldn't say that's standard. That's actually that's a pretty good price. We ended up partnering with the place that I actually went to rehab.
Okay.
Because Valley Hope has like 9 locations. They actually have one in St. Louis.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they've got one down there, and so they're located all throughout the Midwest and Southwest. And so we partnered with them, and we actually set up a formal 501c3. And so we raised money throughout the year. And to date, we've sent probably 40 to 50 people to treatment in the last 3 or 4 years.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the,
so it's been
do you
really
know the
rewarding.
success rate kind of on that and how it's working out for those people? That's kind of, I don't know if you want to like kind of measure that. It's kind of a weird thing.
So it's really hard. So I get that question very, very often.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not that I'm dodging the question. What I will say is that we have some amazing success stories.
Yep.
Right. We've got some guys that literally got sober right when we started Roofers in Recovery and having online meetings and in-person meetings and sending them to treatment. We've got some guys that are still sober from that day 4 years later, right? We've also got people that came in and they OD'd and they're dead.
Yep. Yeah, that's
right.
That's
so
terrible.
like,
yes.
It's everybody doesn't get it. Like I'm very fortunate and very blessed that I'm not dead. And that I got it and I figured it out and I did the things that were asked of me. I think that our success rate is probably a little bit higher than just normal people going somewhere because we give some aftercare aspects where we have groups available after they get out of treatment. We have our Roofers in Recovery online meetings and Facebook group, and we have all those things that we do to try to support the person after treatment. Because the most dangerous place you can be is post-treatment because you don't know how to reintegrate into your old life. Right.
Interesting.
So I feel like we are more successul than others because of that. But like, there's no stat on like 32% of our people.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and
Makes
even
sense.
if there was, I wouldn't tell people, to be completely honest and transparent, because people that are listening and watching that don't understand this recovery world go, well, that's low.
Yeah.
No, it's really not. Like, it's not. Like, this is a really hard thing to overcome. So, but we are very successful, but we also have failures where like we cry ourselves to sleep at night because this guy we were trying to help decided to go back out and OD'd on heroin.
Yep. Well, and I would say even if 1 out of 50, you're
correct. And it's way better than that.
Yeah. I would say, why would you not be happy with that? I mean, at least you're helping one person. So,
because if you say one person, if you help one person though, you impact.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Right.
Yep.
So if people wanted to help Roofers in Recovery, where should they go? Are you looking for like volunteers? How can we help assist you?
Money.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, money makes the world go round. Like, that is the hardest thing to do, is to raise funds. Obviously you can go to www.roofersinrecovery.com. You can literally donate right on the page. We can set up reoccurring donations if you want to do, percentage of, jobs sold, blah, blah, blah. Our big fundraiser every year, we just got done in June. We do National Roofers in Recovery Day.
Okay.
And we ask roofers across the country to build a roof on that one day and then donate the profit from that roof to Roofers in Recovery. So we're going to have one big day where we fundraise. So I think we made a couple $100,000 this year, short of our goal. But we're retooling kind of how we're doing that. So our goal is to be able to raise enough on that day to send 50 people a year to treatment, which is about $750,000.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you heard it, listeners. Roofersinrecovery.com. Feel free to send donations their way for a good cause, of course. And then, so I wanted to ask you now about your podcast, Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I love the name, number one.
Thank you.
What's the goal here? So obviously your goal is to, I would assume, for business owners to be authentic and to actually be themselves, or salespeople or whoever you are. Why'd you start the podcast? What's kind of your mission there?
Yeah, so that has changed over the years, right?
So what did start with, and now, yeah.
So what it started with was, I knew that I had something to say. Right. I knew that I had something to say and that people needed to hear it. And I wanted to be able to help other people in some capacity. I didn't know what the hell that was.
Right.
And I got asked to be on an industry podcast by a guy by the name of Matt Mulholland. And he had a show called Listen to This Bull. And I was on his show, and it was on, like, he filmed it in StreamYard, right? So like, you're in that little green room at one point, and you're on air, and then you're back in the green room. And we got done with the episode, and I was sitting in the green room, and Matt thanked me. And I was like, for what? I'm like, I wasn't that good. And he was like, no, he was like, thank you for being the same person on camera as you are off camera.
Yep.
And I said, and I go, oh, is that not a thing? I'm like, people don't do that? And he's like, no. He's like, nobody fucking does that. And I'm like, well, that's a problem, right? And that was when all of a sudden I had this thought of, like being authentic to who you are and not trying to pretend to be these other people that we're watching with the Ed Miletts and the Andy Frisellas and the Gary V's and right. Like we can learn from all of these people, but it's the people that are not just trying to emulate, but they're trying to copy and be these people. And it's like, fuck that. Figure out how to be the best version of you. And what does that mean for you? Right. And so I knew that was what I wanted to talk about. And so I literally was driving. I had about an hour drive to go look at this big commercial roof. I remember I was driving to Lincoln from Omaha, and I literally went live on Facebook, and I held myself accountable. And I said, I just did this. I want to do this. This is going to be the name of it. And I'm putting it out in the world to hold myself accountable. So I actually do it. Right.
Yep.
And the mission at that time was just to talk about being real and not being the fake shit that we see on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yes.
Now, that was what it started as, right? And it was be authentic or get the fuck out, because the theory was if you came on the show and I thought for a second that you weren't being genuine and authentic to who you actually are, I was going to shut the podcast down and we were fucking done. We'd air what we had, and then we'd move on to the next one.
Interesting. Did you actually cut out some of the podcasts?
No, because the problem is that like my first 5 or 6 guests were obviously people that I knew, right? Like and friends of mine, so like they weren't going to do that. And then all of a sudden, people started watching, and they were like, "Well, shit, I don't want to come on," right? Like nobody. You
don't want to be that person,
right? Like nobody was willing to be that person. And then everybody's like, well, now you need to fake it. You need to bring somebody on so you can get them the fuck out. I'm like, well, that wouldn't be authentic.
Exactly. That's the opposite. That's the opposite of the name.
So I'm like, I can't fucking do that either. So because of that, it morphed into, I ended up having so many people on that had these stories of A, recovery, like myself, or B, overcoming these amazing struggles that they lived in their lives and now run multi-million-dollar, organizations. Or how they're helping people or what they're passionate about. So what we do now is we bring people on not to like do 30 minutes of backstory bullshit, right? Like we all have to do that for the first 5 minutes of the show, whatever. Like people need to know who you are.
Sure.
But I want to figure out what actually makes you different, right? What's the shit that you don't really want to talk about, right? But what people need to hear so that they can be impacted, right? So we call it a comfortable place to have uncomfortable conversations.
Got it. I listened to, I think the most recent one that you had on with Jennifer Silver. Is that right?
So Jen Silver.
Yeah, I listened to part of that podcast, and that was a super interesting podcast. So anyone looking to listen to another great podcast, check out Eric's here, Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I listen to everything on YouTube. I'm a weirdo. Apparently that's not the average place to listen to podcasts. This is so weird to me, but I like video and I have YouTube Premium, and people all the time are like, Eric, why the hell would you listen to it on YouTube even if you're not watching the video? And I'm like, don't ask that question, because if I unpause my screen, I want to be able to see what the hell they're saying. They got a news article or something pulled up. You got to check the screen out.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our sponsor, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee. Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance is recruiting agency owners here in St. Louis.
That's right, Garrett, and everyone knows what Farmers Insurance is, and if they don't, they will now.
Yes, it's kind of a household name. That said, as many of you know, a large part of our audience is made up of badass business owners, entrepreneurs, and top producing sales professionals with an open mind like yourself. Farmers Insurance is currently searching for driven individuals who aspire to own their own business or already own their own business and want to add another income stream to join the Farmers Insurance brand and own their own insurance agency.
This is a stellar opportunity to build your own insurance agency from scratch, take over an existing agency, Or if you're just a slow roller, we know you, the guys out there and ladies, get paid to train under an existing successful agency owner before starting your own.
Holy shit, Eric. That means that whether you have experience as a business owner or you've never heard the word business before in your life, there's a pathway to owning your own business through Farmers Insurance Agency led by Mark Lee.
That's right. You can become a Farmers Insurance business owner even if you've been homeless in the past, just like you.
Yeah, thanks.
If you've ever dreamt of being your own boss, building a team under a reputable brand, and making a difference in your community by offering top-tier auto, home, and commercial insurance to consumers and businesses in your area, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the godlike man himself, Mark Lee, has the perfect opportunity for you.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com to speak with Mark Lee, the district manager of Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, to become a Farmers Insurance agency owner today.
Did you hear that, St. Louis? Go visit insurancecareerstl.com. Insurancecareerstl.com. That is INSURANCE, career, CAREERSTL.com.
To become a business owner today, again, one more time, visit insurancecareerstl, as in St. Louis.com today. Right now, this second, or reach out to us at stlouispodcast.com and we'll introduce you to Mark Lee ourselves. And I promise he won't spell out insurance and career to you.
Now back to the show. With that
Yes.
said, yeah. So with that said, I did want to get into some current news, some current topics. Obviously, you're into, the content game as far as, the podcast is concerned and things like that. So I wanted to ask about Threads. Have you started using it? Have you built out the profile? Is your company using it? Podcast using it? What do you got going on right now in there?
So I'm going to be 100% honest with you.
Yep.
I'm really good at talking. I am not really good at all that other shit. And that is why I have somebody that is sitting right outside that door. Her name is Lexi. And she does all of my podcasts. She does all of my filming. She does all of the editing. She does all of my social media posts. And I don't do any of it because I absolutely hate it.
Hey, me and you both. Me and you both.
Yes. So that being said, yes, we have Threads set up.
Okay.
What am I doing with it? I have absolutely no idea. I think we actually have to have a meeting about it to decide, are we going all in, or what kind of content are we going to put on it? Cause I don't even really understand yet, what kind of content is going to get engagement on it anyway. Right. Because it's Twitter-esque, you know what I mean? So I'm still, to be honest, I'm still figuring it out. Right. So I'm assuming you probably know more about this than I do.
Well, what's interesting is, first of all, I have an Android, and it's not out on Android. Correct? Is Matt? Katie?
Is this a moment that I would tell you to get the fuck out?
No,
with the Android comment. I mean, you got fucking green text bullshit.
Yeah, no, all right. I'm getting an iPhone in September. Okay. I'm getting it in September. I've heard enough about the blue text. I do agree that as a business owner, apparently other business owners, when they see that green bubble, they're like, this fucking broke guy can't even afford an iPhone. So
I don't want to do business with people that have that fucking shit pops up. I'm like, I can't make a good group text. I can't name it. This is bullshit.
All right,
I can't hit ha ha, and it fucking just goes, Eric said ha ha on your damn green screen. No, so yes, I'm proud of you. Good, I'm glad you're doing that.
It's terrible. Yeah, well, I'm waiting to September only because of the USB-C thing. So they're switching from Lightning port to USB-C. I have 5,000 USB-C cords. Why spend $150 on different plugs? And I already got it. I'll just wait for it to come. So I'm
good with that.
That's why I'm waiting. It took me years, though. I think kind of, just being a young guy, I always like to fight back. And I always pick battles like this Android iPhone thing. Not necessarily because I gave a shit, only because I'd pissed the iPhone people off by saying Android's better. And now I'm like,
yes.
Maybe I should have switched years ago. Don't tell my Android friends I said that.
Are you the guy that lives in your hometown and is the guy that purposely says they don't like the hometown team just to irritate all your friends too?
No, I am
Okay.
not. I'm not that guy. No.
Okay, all right.
No. Those are funny friends though. I do have one of those guys in my friend group,
Yeah.
and he's a massive troll because we have a group chat with all we do is talk about sports, and he's always in there just stirring up the pot for entertainment for us all.
Just for that reason. Like, he really doesn't fucking care.
No, he doesn't care at all.
He really doesn't care. He just wants to see how mad he can make you. Right. And like, I even know that, and I still get fired up, and I'm like, oh, I hate you. You know, like I still get angry, and I know what they're doing.
Well, they play into that. They know too, right?
Yes, correct.
So Threads, they've had 100 million signups in the first 5 days. That's insane. Now, the question is usage going to continue? Because the real thing is what's so odd about this Threads thing, and what I find intriguing is, like, you know, obviously the big thing that everyone likes, you either hate Elon or you like Elon. And if you like Elon, you like Twitter because, you know, he's all about freedom of speech. Obviously, you talk shit about Elon, maybe he'll get you off the platform. But for the most part, if you're not attacking him personally, you know he doesn't have any issue. Like Theo Vaughn, there's been a lot of comedians that have been getting like banned on YouTube or things like that. And then, you know, they're going over to Twitter and posting these videos, and they're having no issue because Twitter doesn't give a shit right now about, you know, banning people based on whatever topics people are talking about. January 6th still, you know, Theo Vaughn, and who did you see the comedian? I forget her name. She's what was it? Yeah. And anyway, so I think the thing is with Threads though, they're owned by the same company, right? Facebook and Instagram. They're going to ban you for saying stuff. So why, if people are using Twitter, why would they go to Threads and use it? Also, if people aren't using Twitter, why are they all of a sudden going to want to use Threads? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't see long-term use here. Because, you know, with Instagram, with Snapchat, with TikTok, all of these different platforms had something that brought them to them, that differentiated them from existing platforms. But Threads is essentially it's a copycat essentially. So I don't see long-term plan. I don't understand it.
I don't disagree. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert at it and that I've done like hours and hours of research, but exactly what you just said is what I saw as well. I was like, go ahead and get on it because like we obviously need to, but somebody needs to tell me why. Yeah. Like why is it different? Because nothing seems different other than it links to my Instagram account.
Right. Like, exactly. And you know, and for home service companies, you know, Twitter, Threads, it's like, I mean, really, what are you going to use it for? You know what I mean? To drive business. It's more for personal use than anything else, and fun, whatever. Yeah. Right.
So I'll use it for the podcast, but I won't use it for D&M.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page there. We don't understand it. If you know, someone wants to comment, please send us a DM explaining your thoughts. We'll highlight on the next podcast because I don't understand long term.
I'd like to hear one difference.
Yeah, Matt, Katie, you guys got a difference? They're shaking their head no. They got none either. So right now we don't know. Besides the fact that I think the whole thing is everyone that doesn't like Elon and everyone that quit Twitter for some reason who loves, you know, Facebook and Instagram and Zuckerberg, which makes absolutely no sense.
Absolutely no sense.
So are the woke people going to Threads, I guess? Is that what I'm asking?
I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
They're shaking their head,
from you. Yeah. So it's the fucking lib Twitter. Yeah. And then I mean, to me, that's the difference, right? Which, I mean, I'm not going to play well over there anyway. So.
No, exactly. So moving on to the Sound of Freedom movie. Now, I don't know, Katie or Matt, if you guys have heard about this. Have you heard about the Sound of Freedom movie, Eric?
So I just heard about it yesterday.
Okay.
It like popped up in my feed. Like, did something happen in the last 3 days with this thing?
So the movie, I think, kind of just came out.
Okay.
It's about
people are freaking out about it.
Yeah. So they're freaking out for a few different reasons. So it's about child trafficking. Now, the reason that the left is upset is because the main actor is QAnon. So now the left. Not all of the left, whatever.
In real life or in the movie?
In real life, he's QAnon, and he's a little crazy. But He's an actor. I mean, I don't care about your personal beliefs as long as the movie is good. Is that a weird thing?
I still watch Tom Cruise movies, and he's a fucking whack.
I love Tom Cruise. He's literally one of my favorite actors. Like, I'm sorry.
Right, but not favorite people.
No. He's not. He's not my best friend. He wouldn't be my friend. I'd like to have a drink with him, though. He'd probably be a good. I'd love to get a beer with Tom Cruise and actually see what he's about. But he's probably a psycho.
Well, he's a lunatic. I mean, right, but I mean, the point is like he's a lunatic supporting Scientology, and doing all these crazy ass things. But I'm still going to watch his movie.
But he makes amazing movies. Yep. I'm
going to watch Mission Impossible tonight.
Exactly.
It's fine.
The new one looks amazing. I think it's coming out, or is it already out? I think it's coming out like literally next week. The new Mission Impossible
37.
I'd keep them coming.
Yep.
Never stop.
100%.
Never stop.
Nope.
So the Sound of Freedom movie, it's about child trafficking. The main actor is this QAnon guy. So kind of the left is seeing this as like a far right conspiracy film for some reason. I haven't watched it, so I don't fully grasp everything, but this is what you got people on the left saying. Then, of course, and then what you also have is reports of movie theaters selling out tickets. People go to the movie theater and there's no one in there. They're empty. They also have reports of like people going to AMC theaters and the AC only being out in that specific theater that is showing the movie. So the conspiracy is they're trying to, for some reason, whoever, the people in charge, right, are saying we don't want people to see this movie for some reason. I don't know what it is, but it seems like there's a lot of conspiracy behind them not wanting people to actually go see this movie.
Interesting. So I guess my first question would be, why the hell did they put it in theaters then to begin with? Right? Like
I don't. Yeah, it's a good question. That I don't know. Yeah, it's
that serves no purpose. Because I was just going to say I'll watch it on the plane because I fly home tomorrow. But apparently I can't do that if I have to go to a theater to see it. Like, I'll tell you what I'm not doing, driving to a theater. Like,
yeah.
I'll be waiting until it comes out, kids. Like, I don't take, unless I'm taking my kid to go see a kid's movie at a theater, right? Or Top Gun.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to say,
go to the theater to see Top Gun, right? I'll go to the theater to see that.
I love that
100%.
movie, by the way. That's the best, great all-American movie of all time, the new one. So good.
It makes you laugh and cry.
There's no propaganda.
9 times.
Yeah, there's no propaganda.
Depends on who you talk to.
Well, usually it's like, oh, they're Chinese or they're Russian, but there wasn't. You didn't know. It was just a bad guy. At the end of the day,
it was just a bad guy. Yeah,
which I kind of appreciated at the end of the day because it didn't feel like stuff was being slammed down our throat. It was just like some badass people doing an impossible mission.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. So no, I'm excited to watch it. Like I said, I hope that, because I'll watch all the bullshit though, right? Like I'll watch, if you put something out that people say is left propaganda, right? Like I'll go watch that too, just to see it. Right. Yep. I watched, what's that big fat guy that made the movies 15 years ago? Michael,
I'm not
that big bedwetting liberal that made the oh God, you know what I'm talking about. I swear his name's Michael something. And he made like 3 or 4 movies in a row, documentaries. Damn. I'll remember it as soon as we get done with the show. Okay. But anyway, like I'll take the time to actually go watch those as well, just so that I can understand where they're actually coming from. Right? Yep. They're not going to convince me or change my mind or anything like that. But maybe it gives me an opportunity to open my mind a little, be like, all right, they're fucking crazy, but maybe that one little piece is something that we could talk about.
Yeah.
Right. And like I'm willing to have those conversations. Right. I want to be able to be somewhat empathetic. To say, okay, where are you actually coming from and why, right, behind this? And I want to understand where people are coming from. I'll watch it still and want to throw up probably, but I'll still watch it just to try and learn something.
Yeah, no, mate, yeah. I agree. It's just like you have to watch both sides or just don't listen to anything. I mean, that too kind of works. That kind of works pretty well, but it seems like every single week we come on the podcast, we talk about some sort of politics for some reason, one way or the other. We don't know why, but it's always interesting. So with that said, political update. I actually don't have an update for this week. I'm just curious, Eric, on your thoughts on RFK Jr. What do we got going on the Republican side? What do we got going on the liberal side? Because we got We got like RFK Jr. apparently going to go up against Biden, but they're not going to let him talk or speak. There's not going to be any debates. They're trying to get him canceled right now, RFK Jr., based off his vaccine thing, right? He's come out against the COVID vax, which, I mean, makes a lot of sense now that we see a lot of the research. But it's, I know, shit. YouTube is gonna cancel this episode. And then we got, on the right side, we got Trump, we got DeSantis. It's like, I feel like we're going to turn into a civil war here in the next, Biden's going to drop out, right? Number one, he's got to. There's no way.
Does he even make it to the fucking election? Like, who knows, right?
I don't know. I think they're going to pull him out in the next, they have to say something before September. That he is. You
would think so.
That you don't think so, Matt? I mean, I think they're going to bring on Gavin Newsom.
If they have to strap him to a chair and roll him into the White House, they're going to do it. For some reason, they want to keep him in office no matter what.
Do they change his vice president though?
Oh, 100%. She's out. She's the most hated, I think, VP of all time. She has the lowest approval rating out of any VP of all time.
She stinks. I think you can't bring in Gavin Newsom though. I mean, I think that's like way too pandering to the base. You know what I mean? Like you'll get destroyed.
Well, also California's a shit show. Why do we want to get the governor from a state that's failing?
No.
How the hell does that make any sense?
I don't think that works either. So this is my take. About 7 years ago, I changed my party affiliation because I could not associate or identify with either party. Mm-hmm. And I could not in good conscience, if somebody asked me, what are you, right? People love to fucking ask, what are you? Yeah. And I'm like, well, first I'm an American.
We love labels.
We love labels, but there was no chance in hell that I would ever identify as a Democrat or liberal. But the way that the Republican Party that I grew up watching, the way that it went in the last 5 to 10 years, whatever you want to call it, has went also so far to the extreme, and the country has made these sides so far apart from each other that, back in the day, it was here, right, and then we fought in this gray area right here, but we were still here because both sides were still concerned about the country, and we just had different ideologies on how to solve the same problem, right? But the country and the world in general have went to these spectrums to where nothing actually gets fucking done anymore because nobody is willing to compromise, have conversations, do anything. So I went and said, look, it's fine. I can't vote in primaries, whatever. Like, that's the one thing that I lose. But I said, I am a libertarian, right? Yep. I said, I am absolutely a libertarian. I'm going to identify as a libertarian. I'm going to vote as a libertarian, which means I can vote for whatever side that I want. Yep. I still haven't seen a Democrat that I would ever vote for, but I'm open to listening, right, to an RFK or, whatever.
Have you listened to him at all? Have you listened to RFK?
I've listened to a little bit. Okay. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to start listening to more.
He's done quite a few. He's done a ton of podcasts. Listen to one of them on a podcast he's done.
Yeah, but we need to find some of that middle ground again. And I know that's just fucking that like everybody says that, but like we need to find some real common sense shit to figure out, right? Like, don't tell me what to do. That's number one. Maybe that's just being a business owner, right?
Yeah.
But stop fucking telling me what to do.
That's part of it. Yep.
Right. And don't fuck with my money. Like, that's it.
Both of which they did in COVID. Yeah. Both of which they did in COVID.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Don't fuck with me. Don't fuck with my family and my kids, and don't mess with my money.
Yep.
Like, those are the two things, the three things that I give a shit about. Right. Other than that, like, go do your foreign policy. Don't let us get bombed. Take our taxes and build fucking roads and defend our borders.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we're supposed to raise money for. Yeah. We're supposed to raise money to defend our borders and build us some fucking roads. That's it. Stop giving fucking money away to poor people all the time and put them to fucking work. And then, like, they can come work for me. I don't give a shit. Like, that's fine. I'll put them to work. But like, let's be simple about it and quit convoluting the fucking thing. It's why we're trillions of dollars in debt. And that drives me up a goddamn wall. You can't run shit like that.
1,000%. And did you see, so you said border security. So did you see RFK actually went down to the border? So he went down.
I heard about it. I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
He went down to the border. Get this shit. Oh my God. I fucking love this. So there's a bunch of holes all over the wall. Like, all over the place. So people can just walk in and walk out at any time. And the materials to fix the wall are right there. They have been there. They have been there since Trump got out of office. And apparently Biden and his team are just not installing it for obvious reasons. Which actually I don't understand the obvious reason. Why do you want an open border to ruin this country? It makes no sense. I don't understand it.
Well, here's my answer. This is what I think. Mm-hmm. Because because of the certain states that are allowing you to be an illegal alien, and eventually you get to fucking vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So they're building their base. Mm-hmm. They're building their base because they're like, oh, that is the party that let me in. Yep. So I'm always going to vote. So like, it's literally like, it's a different version of gerrymandering, right? It's a different version of redistricting. They're bringing in their voters so that they can take over all of the government. I mean, I know that sounds conspiracy fucking crazy, but like, I think over time you do this for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You get to own the fucking country.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's 1,000%. 1,000%. I think it's got to be. They're intentionally ruining the country in front of our eyes, and like no one just wants to say it. The fact that why are we not America first anymore? That's really like the thing is like, why are we not America first? You know, why do we want to let these people in? Why do we want to send all this money to Ukraine? Why do we have cities in the United States falling apart? Like you're saying, infrastructure, the bridges, I mean, name inner city issues, and we're sending billions overseas. I cannot grasp like how just irresponsible and the fact that they just don't give a shit. And they don't even care like what we think. It's so odd.
No, yeah, agreed. And but my other reason for saying protect our borders is not just keep people out. It's the fact of like we have to be smart on a global scale to keep people out of our fucking country from coming after us, right? Yeah. Like, but we are very fortunate, right? I just watched something the other day and they're like, you have no idea how fortunate we are as Americans. Like we've got the Atlantic Ocean 100%. And the Pacific Ocean and pretty good neighbors in Canada and Mexico, right? But the problem with the border issue in Mexico to me is that all of a sudden now we've got the issues with fucking Russia building a spy center in Cuba.
Yeah.
So how fucking easy is it to get from Cuba to fucking Mexico?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I'm not as worried about the like Mexicans and El Salvadorians coming in and like working because I'll be honest, they work for me.
Yep.
Right. Like and that's one thing. I'm not as concerned about them coming in as I am other people using that portal to be able to come in and cause like real fucking problems in our country. That's what I'm even more concerned about.
Yeah, no, I think there was reports of, like people like countries like China or Russia using that border to get in. So, I mean,
of course they are.
Yeah, right. You know, we think about like drug mules and like things like that, but that's, I mean, it's obviously it's terrible, but that's small. But there's larger stuff at scale here, right? And I think the other thing as well is if, you know, we can't solve the problem of like immigration, of like visas and all of this other stuff. You know, for example, for you, obviously using workers from, from Central America, you know, it's tough, right? There is a process, but it could be a hell of a lot better and it could make a hell of a lot more sense. But that's almost solving a problem before you solve the original problem, which is people are still pouring in. So once we kind of are able to fix that problem, then we can actually solve the problem of the visa situation and making sure that obviously we want the best people coming to America from all around the world. We want open gates to those people, right? But it makes it tough when we have, you know, the other issues going on. So it's almost like we need to solve that before we're actually able to solve the other issues that come after it. But no one wants to solve it.
Get into other countries. You know how hard it is to get into other countries.
Yeah.
Like holy shit.
Yeah. My cousin just went up to Canada And from going from here to Canada, she actually almost got arrested because she had a small can of mace on her. And that was
really?
It. Yeah. Because apparently, I'm sure they weren't actually going to arrest her, but they made it into a big deal of, hey, this is a big deal, right? You're coming from here to here. Obviously, people don't know that stuff, but the point is, it's not like you're just going to be able to cross into Canada as well.
I can't cross the Canadian border.
Right.
I'm a felon with DUIs.
Right, exactly. So you
if you have a DUI, they won't let you cross the border.
That's right. Yeah, I always forget about that. That's such a weird thing. Where does that come from, by the way?
No clue. Okay. Well, you can fly in.
So you could fly in, but you can't drive in. But can you drive in with someone else? Like if you're a passenger in the car?
That I don't know. Okay. I don't know if they check everybody in the car. My guess is that they check everybody in the car. I had a buddy that went up there and he's worried that his son was going to get turned away at the border, and they checked everybody's IDs, not just the driver. And he ended up getting through, but like they were concerned about it that he wasn't going to. So I think they checked everybody.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it's super interesting. Like I don't know all those rules. All I know is they're wild as shit up there with that.
Yeah. Well, I think, and they had crazy COVID laws as well I don't even know if they still do, but they wouldn't let us fly in. And I think it was this year they stopped that rule of you mandated COVID vaccine to fly into Canada.
Yeah. You can keep that country anyway too. You can keep Canada. I don't give a fuck if California floats away. Like I'm totally fine with that. I hope they have an earthquake and it breaks off right on the fucking border and it just floats into the ocean. It can be its own island. They can start their own little entity. That's totally fine. And from a roofing standpoint, like I love Florida, but from a roofing standpoint, I don't care if that floats away either. So like those two little things could just go and like have the rest of us and I'm fine.
I think we'd be a lot of the bad politics would be taken out if we take those two states out of the mix. I mean, to be honest,
yes,
there's a lot. That's a toxic side of both Republicans and Democrats. That is funny. Just go ahead. Let's go ahead and blow it up. Let's get some towboats. Let's throw them out in the middle of the ocean. We'll say, see you later. Have fun. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, I think Florida's going to float away anyway from the hurricanes regardless. So like we've got that. And then, I mean, eventually there'll just be an earthquake and that line will just break and it'll float. So like, I mean, it's coming. Like if we could expedite it, cool. But like eventually it'll just happen.
Sure. Well, we're almost at our time here. So I did want to turn it over to you. Do you have anything you'd like to share to the audience? Anything about any of the businesses, where to go, websites, et cetera, et cetera?
You know how I always like to end when I'm doing somebody else's show is that the reason that I do almost everything that I do is to try and figure out a way to help other people. And that comes from my time in AA, in recovery. And I've translated that into my business as well, right? So like I use the principles of recovery inside of my business to help all the people in here. And I know for a fact that there is somebody listening to this, watching this, that is going through some type of a struggle today, whether it's drugs or alcohol or depression or whatever it is, and that they're afraid to reach out. They're scared. They're living in fear, and that life is their normal, right? Yep. And the thing that I like to leave people with is that does not have to be your life. You are choosing to stay in it, right? But there are people that are willing to help you get out of that vicious cycle that you're in. And you don't have to stay in it. You can get out of it, but here's the caveat. You can't get out of it by yourself. Mm-hmm. So that means that you have to pick up the phone. You have to call somebody or send a message, and you can send a message to me. Nobody else has my name, Eric Oberembt. You can find me on, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. Myself or Lexi checks all my messages, right? So if something comes through and it needs to get to me, it gets to me. And it doesn't mean that I can put you through Roofers in Recovery program or I can do this or, whatever. But what I am going to do is if I can't get you the information you need, I can at least talk to you. And then I can connect you with somebody in your area because I know a shitload of people, right? And the point is that we were put on this planet. This is what I decided to believe in the last 10 or 15 years of my recovery. We were put on this planet to impact other people, change lives, and help people that need help. We were not put on this planet to make money. We were not put on this planet to fuck people over.
Yep.
We were not put on this planet to do anything other than to raise kids if we have them, to make people better, and to help people that are in need and want our help, or genuinely actually want help and want to be better. That's what we're here for. And so that's my mission in life, is to do that and to help people. And that's why, like I said, we check all of our messages. And if somebody sends a message that says, Eric, I don't know what to do. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop using. I think I'm going to die, blah, 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 blah. Like, message me, somebody in our group, and we will get you to the right people, because you don't have to live like that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a great message, and definitely replay the last 60 seconds if you had to, because he had some good information, not only just really for all of us as well. So, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, go check out his podcast, Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. If you're in Omaha or Nebraska, how large is your service area for roofing?
Well, so our headquarters is in Nebraska, because that's where I was located for 44 years, 43 years, but we recently moved to Texas. So we're actually in Houston. So we operate out of Houston. We've got an office and location there in Houston, and work 3-4 hours around that. And then we're in Nebraska and Iowa as well.
Perfect. So if you have any roofing needs or siding needs, exterior needs, reach out to Eric here. And then, of course, Roofers in Recovery. Again, if you feel like, you know of anyone that may be in need, send them his way. If you can donate or get the word out about the group, go ahead and do that as well. Once again, Eric, pleasure having you on the podcast. Before we get out of here, that's all the time we have for today. So the St. Louis podcast will be back next week, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, with a new episode, new guest, and potentially Garrett will be back. I think he's down 2 legs and an arm now. I'm not sure where we're at on body parts being chopped off. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching live or later and we said something wrong, said something you hate, or said something you want to hear more about, which I'm sure we did today, I'm sure we upset some people, DM me, please, so that way I can delete the message. Finally, the episode was recorded at Half Ghost Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. If you are looking to take the podcast to the next level, feel free to reach out to the guys here. Alex Dietrich, one of my business partners at Vibe Media, is probably the guy you're going to be talking to here. And they'll take great care of you, as well as Matt, the producer, going ahead and spinning the mics back there for us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Eric, and a pleasure hosting this podcast for the people of St. Louis. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our sponsor, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee. Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance is recruiting agency owners here in St. Louis.
That's right, Garrett, and everyone knows what Farmers Insurance is, and if they don't, they will now.
Yes, it's kind of a household name. That said, as many of you know, a large part of our audience is made up of badass business owners, entrepreneurs, and top producing sales professionals with an open mind like yourself. Farmers Insurance is currently searching for driven individuals who aspire to own their own business or already own their own business and want to add another income stream to join the Farmers Insurance brand and own their own insurance agency.
This is a stellar opportunity to build your own insurance agency from scratch, take over an existing agency, or if you're just a slow roller, we know you, the guys out there and ladies, get paid to train under an existing successful agency owner before starting your own.
Holy shit, Eric. That means that whether you have experience as a business owner or you've never heard the word business before in your life, there's a pathway to owning your own business through Farmers Insurance Agency led by Mark Lee.
That's right. You can become a Farmers Insurance business owner even if you've been homeless in the past, just like you.
Yeah, thanks.
If you've ever dreamt of being your own boss, building a team under a reputable brand, and making a difference in your community by offering top-tier auto, home, and commercial insurance to consumers and businesses in your area, Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the godlike man himself, Mark Lee, has the perfect opportunity for you.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com to speak with Mark Lee, the district manager of Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, to become a Farmers Insurance agency owner today.
Did you hear that, St. Louis? Go visit insurancecareerstl.com. Insurancecareerstl.com. That is INSURANCE. Career, CAREERSTL.com.
To become a business owner today, again, one more time, visit insurancecareerstl, as in St. Louis.com today. right now, this second, or reach out to us at stlouispodcast.com and we'll introduce you to Mark Lee ourselves. And I promise he won't spell out insurance and career to you.